This is the Khmer Times News. My name is Paolo Bornini, and these are your headlines. The Queen of England has died. Myanmar may be kicked out of the ASEAN alliance, and kids in a school collapsed fainting as someone said they had seen a ghost. But first to our main story. It was early in the evening, and from Balmoral Castle the call was made, and a message was sent to Downing Street. It simply read, "London Bridge is down." This was the agreed code to announce the Queen of England's death and to put into motion the notification of the rest of the world that the Queen of England had died.
Elizabeth II was the longest reigning monarch in British history, surpassing the reign of her great-great-grandmother, Queen Victoria. There were many unsettling moments presiding over the monarchy, and she demonstrated that she was firmly in control. There were such situations as the death of Prince Philip just in April of 2021. And although the Queen may not have been as strong at the end of her reign, on her Silver Jubilee she recalled a pledge that she had made 30 years ago. She said, "When I was 21, I pledged my life to the service of our people, and I asked for God's help to make that vow good. Although that vow was made in my salad days, when I was green in judgment, I do not regret it or retract one word of it." And many would agree. She not only was the woman who never faltered in her duty to both nation and to the crown.
With her death, Prince Charles instantly became King Charles, a moment he had quoted as one he absolutely dreaded. The burdens of state and of crown now rest upon his shoulders, and he alone takes on the task that he never wanted. He bid a fond farewell to his mother by saying, "May flights of angels sing thee to thy rest." A sentiment echoed by an entire nation. Thank you, ma'am, and God save the King. Cambodian scholars have made quite an astonishing statement, saying ASEAN should consider amending its charter to allow for the suspension or removal of member states. Amending the charter is a very bold step, and one that could exclude the murderous military government of Myanmar from the ASEAN alliance.
This call came in the wake of reports that Myanmar's military junta has just jailed Aung San Suu Kyi to 3 more years imprisonment under the absurd charge of election fraud. She has now been sentenced to 20 years in prison, and if that is not enough pantomime court procedures, there are several charges remaining. When the puppet courts of Myanmar have finished its farcical charade, Suu Kyi could face almost 200 years in prison. And it is this that has angered the Director General of International Relations of Cambodia, saying ASEAN should consider amending its charter to suspend or remove a member state from the bloc because we cannot allow this crisis to continue any longer. The situation in Myanmar is a humanitarian crisis. Violence has escalated, and now the military are murdering their opponents in show trials. It's hard to see how this despotic regime can be allowed to stay in the ASEAN. The absurdity of Myanmar is stark. Aung San Suu Kyi, a democratically elected leader, is sentenced to years of hard labour on such idiotic charges as having abused her position by renting land at a discounted price. All this while the military junta levels its guns at its own countrymen and hangs from ropes those that dare to call this barbaric regime unjust. This pantomime of justice is as cruel as it is absurd.
The gap between rich and poor has widened like never before. There has been a 25% jump in people that have been forced into the poverty bracket. And the reason is the complete halt of tourism and its slow recovery.
In June 2020, the Ministry of Planning estimated 2.3 million people as eligible for COVID funding. The number increased to 2.7 million in April of 2021. The ministry has said, over 10 months, the number of people classified as newly poor increased by almost 25%. In years to come, unless there is a rapid equal economic recovery, which is unlikely, more households will be dragged into poverty. Initially, before the pandemic reached Cambodia in February 2020, both the Cambodian government and the Asian Development Bank forecast gross domestic product growth of about 6.5% for 2020. But the actual growth was minus 3.1%, primarily due to the decline in Cambodia's key economic sectors, tourism, garments, and construction. The numbers are big. Tourism was the country's second largest growth driver, contributing about 20% to the GDP growth. But in 2020, tourism came to a halt, and the contraction in the market was staggering, 99.6%. Now, in the first half of 2022, Cambodia has received 500,000 international tourists, an increase, but the growth is slow, and it is those that are unseen, that live on the very fringes of society, that are suffering the most. And it is they that are struggling to feed themselves and their children this very night.
Poverty is also causing serious concerns with child hunger in numerous provinces. 60,000 children are suffering from malnutrition, and the situation has caused grave concern to UNICEF, who are to take action to reduce what they classify as a life-threatening situation to many children.
Following a donation of 3.4 million from the United Kingdom, UNICEF will expand its work to tackle the problem of child hunger across 6 provinces, saving over 5,000 lives over the next 3 years, according to a press release from UNICEF. Wasting is severe malnutrition, or more simply put, a lack of enough food to maintain life. And it afflicts 1 in 10 Cambodian children under the age of 5, and is often characterized by a low weight to height ratio. A study in 2021 showed that childhood stunting did decrease from 34 to 22%. But childhood wasting has remained unchanged at 10%. And children not only suffer, but can die from this condition. Currently, less than 10% of the estimated 60,000 children suffering from wasting in Cambodia have access to treatment. The shocking truth is that children suffering from wasting are up to 11 times more likely to die than a well-fed child, said UNICEF's representative in Cambodia. But still today, 1 in 10 children suffers from wasting, the most dangerous form of hunger, and it is estimated a further $8 million is needed urgently to stop any more unnecessary deaths.
Another unbelievably confusing case of mass hysteria has broken out at a school. This time it has a supernatural theme, and that is a ghost walked amongst the children and mass hysteria broke out, promptly followed by kids falling over, fainting, and having to be rushed to hospital. Oh dear.
It all started when a group of students said they had witnessed an evil spirit. Now, as to how one defines an evil spirit, or as to what it is they saw, has never been explained. But for some bizarre reason, the whispers of an evil spirit being present in the school crept along the corridors like a dark fog of despair. And as it crept from room to room, each child amplified the tale of the evil that walked amongst them. The hysteria rose by degrees until, pop, it was all too much, and they started falling over. Quite literally, mass hysteria broke into a frenzy of fainting. 10 students worked themselves into such a state of panic, they collapsed. Some even claimed they'd seen the ghost. But as skilled as school kids are at deluging the world with pictures of themselves, not one of them pointed the camera at the apparition to capture the ghost on film. The situation escalated so much that students were sent to a local health centre, while others were taken to a pagoda to receive blessings. A doctor from the district health centre says that a team of doctors from Stung Treng Health Department will visit the school to find out the reason. I think the answer, Doc, is add a few more classes on rational thinking and give them all a grade A in drama. But if you have other thoughts on this story, or maybe have an interesting story to tell us of, then please do email myself at the studio. I would love to hear from you. And the address is ktnewsstudio@gmail.com. And I'll be repeating that at the end of the show.
And now it's time to look at our sports news. It is rumoured that Cristiano Ronaldo is considering a deal worth $295 million a year to play for an unnamed club in Saudi Arabia. Now, I'm just going to say that again. That is a wage of nearly $300 million a year, a staggering $800,000 per day to play football. Wow. Now let us go to this week's results in the Europa.
And looking at the latest Europa results, we see that PSV had a ding-a-ling-a-ding-dong with Boda, and they drew 1-1. That was a shocking result for them. Arsenal fared much better, 2-1 against Zurich. And Man United went down 1-0. This is yet another loss in a series of losses for them.
It's time to have a look ahead and see what the weather has in store for us next week.
And looking at the weather chart, it is yet more rain across the board. So let's quickly bounce into one of our interesting facts. Is it better to run or to walk in the rain? Well, a Professor Boker has conducted considerable research, and he works for the Journal of European Physics. And what he has said is, in general, the best thing is to run as fast as you can. Not always, but in general. Well, it does leave me wondering if the kind professor's next paper was headed how to sit on a fence, and to make absolutely no decisions.
This has been the Khmer Times News. You can contact myself at the studio by mailing us at ktnewsstudio@gmail.com. Please do subscribe and comment and stay up to date with all the breaking news by following us on both Facebook and Telegram. This has been Paolo Bonini, and that was the week that was. I'll see you next Saturday for your weekly roundup.